Thanks, Eric. Let me just load the slides real quick here. So he's serious. If you don't do what he says, we're all in trouble. So it's a good thing to have a chief like Eric. So welcome to Somerville. This is a picture I took, I think, a couple of days ago with the tulips. I always find it very inspiring, like at this time of year. This is our first real office that you all are in, and I was asking one of our other advisors back in the day, Rick Bellata. Some of you guys may know him from Lighthammer, ThingWorks, Notoriety. He said, like, when should we do our first user summit or a meetup of this sort? And he says, like, when you don't know your partners and customers one by one individually anymore. And so this is what happened to us, I guess, earlier part of this year. And so while I see a lot of familiar faces here, and it's great to see you all, and thank you so much for coming, lots of familiar faces, but a lot of people I don't know in person anymore. And this is the beginning of the movement. So really, like, this is not about Tulip so much. It's really about you. And this is the theme I would like to talk about as we kind of get together here for the first time to talk about what is this thing that we're trying to define as agile manufacturing. So I kind of challenged myself to do this presentation without saying Industry 4.0. So this is the first time I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it one more time later. But if I screw this up, please, put me to shame later. But basically, this is what I think is the state of manufacturing today. So, and I also think you all know this, is that we're dealing with growing and complex supply chains that change how we make things and what our customers want. So they want everything now, and they want it customized and built to order. And they want it in a faster product cycles. And later on, I think you'll hear from Etienne, even tomorrow at the Digital Manufacturing Conference we're doing together with Vention and Right Hand Robotics and a bunch of other startups, is people are not designing production lines for a 20-year lifetime anymore. They're really designing them for a much shorter lifespan. I don't know if it's 5 or 7 years or something like that, but that's definitely happening. Then, one of the things that's driving this, obviously, is fast-paced technological advancement, and we all know about that. You will hear about the next space from Patty very shortly after me, so I'm going to move on that one. And then, kind of, data is king, and what that means is that, I guess the simple way to think about it, if you really want a true lean organization, if you do not make decisions based on data, you can't be truly lean. And then it begs the question, how do you get the data? How do you get it quickly? How do you fashion it? How do you analyze it? And so on. And then the final point is that the workforce is transforming. And this is not only the silver tsunami, so a bunch of people who are leaving the workforce, who are the best machinists or the people with the most experience on shop floors, is that we hear it from our customers and partners all the time, is that you walk into manufacturing or a school, trying to recruit for manufacturing, you ask, who wants to work in manufacturing? And basically this is like, the room feels like this, like nobody raises their hands, okay? But you ask who wants to work with robotics, AI, data analytics, software, that kind of stuff, everybody raises their hands. But this is all what we do. So what's wrong here, okay? So with that, just as a context, I want to try and think what is agile manufacturing like for all of us. And to me, the traditional, it's really about the transfer of functions from the domain of traditional manufacturing to what I think is a very initial broad definition that requires a lot of work from all of us to what would become agile manufacturing. So the first thing is stop thinking about stuff as top down. So hierarchy is a bad thing for implementing fast-paced change. And bottom-up means that you give the people who do the work the tools to do the work and the responsibility and accountability to make decisions, and change will happen. The second is, when I talk about rigid, it means how well is your organization ready to adopt when change is knocking on the door? And so do you have a flexible manufacturing system? Okay, and this kind of ties into, well, if you have a flexible manufacturing system that can adapt quickly, and that has to do with what technology you use for manufacturing, whether it's the 5x milling machine you have to reconfigure, the automation that is connected to it, or the piece of software that drives all of this. And you know all those things usually take time and money, and we typically put them into the bin of system integration. Well, how you know that? So basically, that's what I mean about when we're trying to create flexible manufacturing systems. And if you understand, have lived through cycles of system integration, then the third point is between definitive and iterative is that it means that if you want to apply this change, it's going to be people who apply it. It's not going to be like, I'm just going to press a button and all my magic systems are going to reconfigure themselves. So we need tools that allow people to iterate. And you know, coming from MIT, you know, we take it for granted. And being engineers who build complex software systems, we take it for granted. But in manufacturing, it's just not the case just yet. And that's the final point. And this is not to say automation is something we should not consider. But automation without augmentation is insufficient. So augmentation is about the workforce. Again, it's about changing what tools people have to do their job and complement existing automation, because automation alone and the idea that you invest into automation without complementing it with the technology that helps the people do their job will not affect the change quick enough. And so, yeah, basically this captures back the, you know, assuming we do this, we take performance visibility technology to create flexible and scalable systems. And I think that's sort of the broad definition. This is a picture we stole kind of from McKinsey, who are good partners. And they have a good, crisp way to explain this idea of Agile in general, I think. And this is, in this picture, you see sort of like what classical hierarchical organization looks like. But the main point I want to push is that these types of organizations are fundamentally risk averse, which is a big part of the problem. So if we truly want agile organization, you kind of need to embrace risk and be okay with it. And if you do that, things like fast-paced development cycles emerge, flexibility emerges, creativity emerges, harnessing a bunch of other people who never had a voice in the transition of a certain production line from version 1 to version 2 kind of emerges. And you know, teams that are built around that, I think, will transform their organization. So I just wanted to give you, obviously, the picture on the right. That you have a rather flat, simple organization. Sometime in Tulip, we like to think about fractal as a metaphor for organizational, so self-defining, repeatable shapes that have autonomy and are very well connected. So in Tulip, and if you just look at the wall over there, I think this has been on every office from when we had an office the size of this space here. Basically believe a simple thing, that behind products there are people. Okay, and this is what we put on the wall. And again, this is what we bring to the table here, but this is not to be, the sales pitch for Tulip. This is more like a call for action, and it means that we're part of the stack, and understanding that the world today it's not just built on a single solution. If you think about the internet and how it evolved because a lot of APIs and tools were available and people connected them to create new, more robust and connected sets of tools that allow people to build things that the original intent of the same APIs and systems was not designed for. So in other words, it's in no pun intended to IBM, because IBM is a great company and a potential partner of ours. But it used to be that IBM would roll in the troops to set up a whole IT infrastructure for an organization, and I believe those days are gone. We are solidly in the best of breed from tools, software, and hardware. And when you think about it from the point of view of manufacturing, our problem is not just in the IT space. Our problem is physical. Like, you all build stuff that at the end of the day, people in the real world need to spend time on real shop floors doing physical things, so they're not behind a computer screen. So that's like a big change. And you guys are doing it. This is just like a quick snapshot of a lot of applications that we see on our platform. And I can tell you that it's pretty amazing to see people build stuff on their own with the context of their own process and changing their organizations. We have seen north of 12 million data points, or application completion as we call them, of processes that are tracked by Tulip that are happening, and that number keeps growing all the time. The way to think about it is this is by the manufacturing engineers, application in the field that now provide yet untracked pieces of data. Not because the CIO said, hey, implement this MES, or like, let's do a big transformation program. It's because people changed how they work, okay? So that's is a key thing. So if we understand that people are now actively changing how they work, and like, why do the summit, and so basically kind of repeat what Eric said, but if you're all in the room are engineers or process people or infrastructure people or system integrators, and you're all working on the same theme, so it kind of makes sense to kind of have a venue to kind of share this kind of information and work on it together. Because if you look at the data, and that's despite automation, almost 70% of the issues that happen on shop floors are human-driven, because humans can have good days and bad days, and humans can be more, trained better or less. Obviously, humans can design good processes or not so good processes, and so on and so forth. So if we understand that, and this comes to like, what is the role of Industry 4.0? And this is the second time, so far I've made it. Like, what does that mean? And I'm gonna plug in Dan Ron, whom I've seen earlier from Den Supply. I don't know where he is. Hi, Dan. Hope that's okay. But Dan and I were in this ARC conference in Florida, and he was talking about the transformation that Den Supply is working with Tulip and a bunch of other things that they're doing, which is really awesome. And he gave one of the best, almost to me, poetical definition of what is Industry 4.0, what it's all about. And so I'll read it to you, and then you all go to Dan and get in his head to understand it better. But I think it's pretty good. So first of all, it's not about robots. It's about simplifying the cognitive load on operators, and it's changing how we make decisions, and basically doing ourselves with what we've done with our personal lives, what we do in our work lives in the context of manufacturing. So if you think about it, all this, when people talk about, yeah, we're in the cyber-physical era of Industry 4.0. Okay, now I failed. That's the third time I said it, but don't know how I would have avoided that. Focusing on like the role of this wave of technology is just help people do better on shop floors. And I see it as our jobs, basically. And our job is like to provide the best tools for you guys all to do it. And so the question is like, how do we accelerate change? And coming from MIT, there's a mandatory formula in everybody knows what this is, like the second derivative that speaks to acceleration of a function. So this is sort of what I'm kind of really thinking hard about, is like, how do we accelerate change? Because change is hard and slow, expensive, and so on and so forth. So the graph on the right-hand side is basically the adoption from the growth from 1993 to February 08 of open source million lines of code. Okay, so this kind of captures the birth of the internet vis-a-vis open source. And so my point is that while it's hard to think about manufacturing as open source, because there's no GitHub, and there's no Stack Overflow, and there is no necessarily a good way to kind of share IP-free or decide to share IP-free manufacturing information, because the manufacturing process is the IP, right? But then again, we could share process, we could share ideas, we could share best practices, and they must be something better than Yahoo portals that look like circa 1998 or some PowerPoint templates and Excel spreadsheets, and that's the best thing that we can do to start with. So we are focused on that, and to actually do that, you have to catalyze a community, and I don't know exactly how it's going to go down. It's not just Tulip has the master plan, but if we all start talking about it, we can build it, and it can be built very quickly. And in 2 years, we can have a curve like that. And I don't know if our metric is going to be source code. Maybe it's application, maybe it's connectors, maybe it's drivers, and so on and so forth. And everybody needs to collaborate. The cloud vendors, and the integrators, and the manufacturers, and the lean practitioner, quality practitioners, and so on and so forth. So to do that, and I'm not going to speak too much about it, but at least share what we're planning to do, is we need to build places where this community can reside. And so one of the things, you can think about this as a manufacturing app exchange, and later on, Mark, who's heading our product, will speak about this. But basically, imagine there's a website that you can go and see what other people are doing, whether they decided to share, and click a button and download it to your Tulip instance, and potentially share and show your work. So we're very excited about that. And with that, I want to thank you and welcome you again.